Okay. And so that because step by step, I am taking you to understand the whole subject. We have discussed about what is savings, what is investment, and we discussed about the financial market, who are the intermediaries, and how the stock market functions, and how the stock exchanges, the role in the financial market. Then what is the exchange role on creating liquidity? The next part we have went to the analysis of the market of the technical and fundamental, so that we should know the valuation of stock. So today, what we know on the part of that the sequence, we will today discuss about. Already we have discussed half of the part of fundamental analysis. However, I will try to just brief you what we have discussed. And in the first 1 hour, we will complete today the fundamental analysis, and we will go for efficient market theory. That's what today the part of the fundamental analysis and this efficient market theory, so that we can move on to the next area of how the portfolios are constructed, how the portfolios are managed, and so that you get the overall full view about the financial market. Okay, friends, and now we'll see that how the fundamental. What do you mean by that fundamental analysis? Fundamental is, basically, it's a numbers. When you do the valuation analysis, we have a two kind of method. One is the technical, and other is a fundamental. Fundamental is purely study the balance sheet of the company. I have last time also insisted everyone that if you want to understand this, you need to have a basic knowledge of accounts. So the accounting knowledge is most essential to understand and do the analysis on a basis of fundamental. A fundamental analysis is just to study the business health and performance of the company. How the companies are fundamentally strong, how their earnings are better, with various ratios from profit and loss account and balance sheet. That is what most important we have to understand. Okay, so that when you do the accounting analysis, you should know there are two main booklet or the information area is that called annual report of the company. The annual report, that what it consists of. What do you mean by annual report? That is the summarized performance of the company submitted to the investor or otherwise shareholders. That how the company is performing on various parameters and what is the future plan and is there any litigation. So many things which are confined in the annual report. That's what I told you that what are the things are there in the annual report. And there is a qualitative aspect and also a quantitative aspect. What is a qualitative aspect? The management's background, business ethics, corporate governance, minority shareholders, share transactions, that is the transfers happen during the year, related party transactions. What do you mean by that? The promoters and their relatives. That's what the related party with the promoters and the highest holding, how the transaction took place. And salaries are paid to the promoters and the operator activities in stock, shareholders. Is there any political affiliation, a promoter's lifestyle? All these things we still study, because see, investment is not it's not a fun. Investment is a business. So if you want to do investment in any shares of any company, we need to understand the whole history of the company as well as the promoters. That is what here there is a qualitative aspect. And when we move on to a quantitative aspect, the quantitative is purely a study of numbers. What is the profitability and growth year on year, how the margins and growth, and how the earnings are there at its growth, and how the expenses are spent, and how efficiently the company is doing operation, and how they are able to price their product in the market. Do they have a power to price their product, or they are in a stiff competition, or it is a government regulated where the management does not have a role to fix the price? For example, sugar or a fertilizer. The promoter or the management or the company cannot have a much role to fix the price because it's a government regulated. So in that case, even your expenses are going up or whatever it may be, the company cannot pass on because they do not have power to price their product. That is what here I mean. I hope that you understand. There are some product I can price as I like it because I do not have much a competition or the product in such a way that I am the only person or few of the players in the market. So I decide my price, whatever the price I do, the consumers may buy that. And also it again depends on how that particular company or a product are taxed by the government and how the government have a dividend payout policies. For example, ITC, if you talk about ITC, that every year the company distribute 90% of its net profit distributed by way of dividend to the shareholders. I hope you understand what I mean. Dividend is, sharing the profit to the shareholders. The company has made a policy that every year 90% of its net profit to be distributed by way of dividend to its shareholders. This is only a policy. So we have to look at that part and how cash flows are generated from various activities. These are all a most important point, friends. I hope that unless otherwise you listen and do the work you have to do, you have to go back and go to the balance sheet of many companies and try to do that analysis. Otherwise, there are two things. One is that just to study is for an academic purposes. Because I have a subject to write for the exam, I just read it and I go through. That is a different. Or if you want really understand it, and or even if you want choose as a profession as an analyst of a company, then you have to do the homework a lot. Then only you will understand a lot of things. Otherwise, when I explain, probably you may feel that you have understood. After some times, you may not remember what it is. Okay, so cash flow from various activities and debt, both short term and long term, working capital management, and asset growth, investment, and financial ratios are most important to understand. Of course, these are all already I have taught you. Just I am trying to recollect, recapture. So the annual report means what is there. It's the financial highlights of the company, corporate information, director's report, and report on corporate governance and financial section and notice to the AG. This is what the annual report consists. However, I won't show you a model of balance sheet, how the financial statements are given in the annual report. Now, annual report, the balance sheet, normally you have two sides. One is assets and the other is a liability. On liability side, the shareholders fund, non-current liabilities and current liabilities are the broad categories. On the asset side, you have a non-current assets and current assets are the things. So assets equivalent to liabilities always, the balance sheet tally. That is called, it is double entry system of bookkeeping. So always both sides should tally. Either a trial balance or a profit loss account or a balance sheet, always both the debit credit should match. Otherwise, there may be an error in the system. So on the asset side, you have a non-current assets like a fixed assets and non-current investment, long-term loans and advances, and other non-current assets. Then current assets like inventories, trade receivables, and the cash and bank balance, short-term loans and advances, and other current assets. I think these are all I have already explained to you. Just to recapture all these things I have told you. Now we will go into the financial statement. What are the financial statements are more important is that one is that profit loss account, another is a balance sheet, the third is a cash flow statement. Okay. Then again, whether it is a standalone or a consolidated, which I have already explained to you. What is the profit loss account? The revenue of the of the company for a given period. Maybe it's a quarterly statement or an annual statement. That means that, see, always you have to understand that profit loss account for a particular period. It's not a cumulative effect. Whereas in the case of balance sheet is as on date. That means that it's a cumulative effect. As on date, what is happening in the company, that will reflect only in the balance sheet. Whereas the profit loss account prepared for every year. So the expenses incurred to generate the revenues, tax and depreciation, the earnings per share, all calculation will be arrived from a profit loss account. So this is how a model profit loss account. You have a revenue, you have an expenditure, and then what is that net income, out of which how much we pay the tax, how much we do the depreciation, and all these things are all given in the profit loss account. Okay. How a balance sheet and profit loss account are connected? See, the profit loss sales revenue always, related to the receivable and cash balance, and an operating expenses is always, related to the inventory and trade payables, and depreciation and amortizations, accumulated depreciation, all reflected in the balance sheet. Other income, maybe investments and all these things. Financial costs, it's purely based on a debt, and PAT on shareholders' equity. This is how, a lot of items are related to the balance sheet. Okay. So when you talk about cash flow, this is what most important everyone in the finance need to understand. You follow me, friends? What is a cash flow statement? A cash flow statement, it reveals what is the cash the company actually generated. Cash means I'm not talking about the currency. It is overall liquidity of the cash flow. That means including bank account and a cash account, current assets, everything. So it is basically, that operational activities and investment activities and financial activities. Your cash flow depends on how company efficiently operates its work and how they plan their investment activities and also how financial activities of the company. So this is now we are coming the major part of the fundamental analysis. How you do the analysis? You need to compare the numbers with another. So that is how you find out the ratios. How, for example, you are in a class that what is your percentage of success? How much mark you scored in every semester? Right. Then we compare with other people that what is the success ratio in the classroom, how many of them are scoring first rank, how many of them are scoring second rank, or how many of them are 80 plus, how many of them are 90 plus, like that. So that is how we understand the ratios. For example, how many placements have been made. So it all depends upon to analyze the standard of the college. So based on that, there will be more admissions may take place. How a college is analyzed, how the quality of education, what is the campus, and how the faculties, and how the placement records, like that, all these things are made analyzed when you do the admission. So same way, when you want to invest in a company, we need to analyze the balance sheet. What are the analyses are more important? The profitability ratios, the leverage ratios, valuation ratios, and operating ratios. These are all an important ratios we need to analyze from the balance sheet. Then we need to understand how better we work. Okay. And so that what is the profitability ratio? Profitable ratio to analyze, measure the profitability of the company. The ratios convey how well the company is able to perform in terms of generating profits. The profitability of the company also signals the competitiveness of the management. As the profits are needed for business expansion and to pay the dividend to its shareholders, a company's profitability is an important consideration for the shareholders. This is what we need to understand. But just read it, and so that you will understand again. And so ultimately, when you do the analysis, what is most important in any business? How the company is making profit. First of all, is the company making a profit or loss? Okay. If they make a profit, is it sufficient profit? And how sufficient or will be decided? The sufficient or more profit or enough profit or a high profit depends upon compare with various parameters. So profitability is more important to decide the company's performance in simple. Now, how the profitability will be decided, we will look at it. Then the next ratio, so 4 ratios I am giving here. One is that profitability ratio. Another is the leverage ratio. Leverage, I hope that most of you understand word the leverage. What do you mean by leverage? See, with a small amount of efforts or input, and we try to put large amount of business, either in the financial term or in the physical term or anything. With a smaller, we try to do bigger. So how much leverage I am using my energy? That is what more important in the business. Okay. So that the leverage means how effectively I try to leverage my asset to do my operations and use my debt, use my financial growth. Okay. And how I can effectively implement my financial payment, receivables, and all these things is all the leverage ratios. Okay. The next one is the valuation ratio. That is a valuation. That is what we have been studying all these aspects. When you want to invest in a company shares, whether the company is worth to invest. So these ratios will give us an idea about the company's current share price of the company is perceived as high or low. Because sometimes the share price in the market may be overvalued or undervalued or reasonably priced. So we should know the price of the shares in the market. Is it overpriced or underpriced or rightly priced? So that we have to come to this conclusion, we need to do the valuation ratio, and then only we'll be able to understand whether the share price are reasonably priced or not. The third most important analysis is called an operating ratios, or otherwise called an activity ratios. This is basically how you convert your assets or your infrastructure into revenue. That is what most important. You follow me, friends? How effectively I use my resources to generate income for the company. Okay, you get my point? For example, I have a capacity of manufacturing, that 100,000 bottles per day. That is what my installed capacity. Whereas I daily produce only 10,000 bottles, PET bottles a day. That means I am utilizing only 10% of my capacity or my infrastructure. That means I am not optimizingly using my infrastructure. So we have to be efficient to use the infrastructure or the available assets base to convert into revenue. Otherwise, that the company is not in a better operating way. You get my point. So the next one we are now studying is that profitability ratio. How this profitability ratio will be calculated? Okay. So I have told you there are 4 ratios: profitability ratio, leverage ratio, valuation ratio, and operating ratios. Now we will see one by one what it is. How the profitability ratios are decided. That is called EBITDA. That means earning before, what is that? Income tax, depreciation, and allowances margin. You know, that operating profit margin. Okay. That CAR, that's called a cumulative average growth rate. Then we need to understand what is a PAT. That is a profit after the tax. Then what is that? PAT means it's a growth and how year on year growing. So first we are looking at the EBITDA, then PAT, then return on equity. What do you mean by return on equity? How much equity share have been invested in the company? Whether the return is proportionate to the equity what we have invested in the company. That is then return on asset. You know that we have 100 crore equity, but an asset ratio may be around 200 crore over a period of time. Whether the company is earning the proportionate assets what we have invested in the company. Then return on capital employed, ROC. Okay. So now you have to ask me one question, that what is the difference between return on equity and return on capital employed? Are you clear? What is the difference between return on equity, return on capital employed? The equity means it's an owner's contributions by way of share capital into the company. Whereas capital employed, there are 2 more aspects which are added to the equity. What do you mean by that? One is that over a period, the company have accumulated a lot of reserves that also added as a capital. Then we would have borrowed money by way of debt. That also become a capital employed in the company. For example, 100 crore of capital, 500 crore of reserves, 1,000 crore of debt. That means that almost 1,600 crore we have employed capital employed in the company. You get my points. Whether the revenue, what, for example, 1,600 crore we have invested, if you are generating 1 crore income, is it really proportionate? Why should we do that? So we have to analyze what is the revenue we're generating in proportion to the capital employed in the company. Then we will understand whether the company is really doing well or not. Okay. So this EBITDA margin indicates that, the efficiency of the management. It tells us how efficient the company's operating model, how the interest is paid, how the tax is paid, how the depreciation and amortizations. It always makes sense to compare the EBITDA margin of the company versus its competitor to get a sense of management efficiency in terms of managing their expense. You got it? So in order to calculate the margin, we first need to calculate the EBITDA itself. So this is one of the analysis in the profit ratios. What is that? The operating revenues equivalent to total revenue minus other income. See, the company, these are all very big subject, friends. Probably we need to go with a lot of examples. We need to have, the on-hand record of the balance sheets, how the profit loss account, then show that numbers, how it is working. It requires a large amount of time to make you understand. However, I'll try my level best to make you in the simplest way to understand. I am just explaining only the formulas, right? The ratios. Then probably if time permits, we can have an actual annual report of any company. Then we do an analysis. so that even this can be done assignment, and also somebody can do a project report on this. Okay. So what are the total revenue? That revenue may be consisting of business profit or maybe other income. For other income means what? Sometimes you would have sold some of the old machineries or some properties or some scrap, or sometimes that extraordinary income would have generated from some other sources. So that is not an operating revenue. So if you want to really understand the operating revenue, out of the total revenue, we should deduct the other income so that we get operating revenue. Same way, the operating expenses include, the financial cost, depreciation, and amortizations, so that you get the exactly operating expenses. Okay. Then how do you do that? Once you calculate that, then you know the real margin. See, total revenue minus other expenditure, minus total expenses, minus finance cost, depreciation, and amortization. So you get, operating revenue minus operating expenses, you get the best ratio. So the next important indicator is the PAT. Okay, PAT margin. What is that? Profit after the tax. That means that is an amount available in the company. Even though you generate a gross profit more, then you have to pay interest, you have to for depreciation, you have to pay for amortizations, everything. Then what is after that? That is what net available with the company. But for a cash flow purposes, we add depreciation also, because even though we claim depreciation as an expenses, but the flows remain with the company. Okay. So the PAT is more important. What do you mean by PAT? The profit after the tax. At the operating level, we consider only the operating expenses. However, there are other expenses such as depreciation, financial cost, which are not considered. Along with these expenses, there are tax expenses as well. When we calculate the PAT margin, all expenses are deducted from the total revenue of the company to identify the overall profitability of the company. So that means what? PAT is equivalent to PAT divided by total revenue. That's what. Okay. Return on equity. What do you mean by that? The next important, these are all profitability ratios. We have been so far discussing on, out of 4 ratios, we have been discussing on the profitability ratio, out of which we are now discussing on how much return we generate on the equity investment in the company. Okay. So that the shareholders will understand how efficiently the company is generating income for their shares. How their return on equity can be calculated as a net profit divided by number of shareholders equity. So that you get the percentage on return on equity. Okay. The net profit margin is equivalent to net profit divided by sales. See, that is the reason called it is a margin. See how much, for example, see when you do 1,000 crore turnover, well, for example, you generate 10 crore as a net profit. That means what? What is the margin? Hardly 1%. Your 1,000 divided by what is the net profit? 10. That means 1,000 crore sales, but your net margin is the profit is that 10 crore. That means you are working hardly on 1% margin, very thin margin. So as long as the percentage of margin is more, that means you have a good command over your product and good command in a market. Okay, you get my point? If there is a more margin in your sales, that means you have a better position. You can earn better. Whereas if there is a working on a thin margin, that means you are at a verge of danger. That means sometimes if the price slips down, you may not make money even though you do large amount of sales. You get my point, friends. You understand? Okay. So that the leverage, when you do the leverage, what do you mean by leverage? For example, I have 1,000 rupees, but I try to do business for 5,000 rupees. That means I am trying to leverage myself, my investment into 5 times. Okay, how I do that? Probably I may take a loan, or I may take a forward, I may do a marginal investment. That is how I leverage my investment. How better I leverage. At the same time, I should not over leverage, or I should not feel that I never leverage. You understand? Okay. So the financial leverage helps us for every unit of shareholders' equity. How many times, how many units of asset does the company have? Higher the financial leverage along with the increased amount of debt will indicate the company is highly leveraged. Hence, investors should exercise caution. That is what, whether high leverage or a normal leverage. So DuPont also made a breakup on return on equity formula into 3 distinct components. What is that? The insight of the company operating on a financial capacity. So the net profit is the PAT margin. The asset turnover is equal to net sales minus average of total assets. That's called return on asset. How much asset we have invested in? Well, are we making income just proportionate to the assets what we have invested? For example, I have invested in asset, plant, machinery, so many things for 10,000 crore worth of an asset. Whereas I hardly make 10 crore revenue in a year. Is it right way? No. So we have to see that how much return on generating on my asset. So this is a capital employed. As I told you, no, the capital employed is not only an equity. There may be a debt, there may be reserves, there may be an equity. Adding together, that much money we have employed in the business. Follow? How much money we have employed in that particular business? Whether we are making profit proportionate to the capital employed. Okay. So the next another ratio is to whether how interest coverage ratio we do. What do you mean by that? When we generate profit, do we generate profit? Is it sufficient to meet my interest cost? What is an interest cost? In a business, we would have borrowed money either for a short-term purposes or a long-term purposes. That is called a debt. The debt does not come free. The every debt have got a cost. That is another way called as interest. Do we really able to generate the income which at least cover the interest? That is what that interest coverage ratio. If even we do not earn for interest, that means the company will go in debt trap. Then how much debt we have raised in proportion to equity? As I told you earlier, for example, now I have invested 100 crore. My debt is 200 crore. That means 1:2 ratios. Suppose I have borrowed 1,000 crore. By investing 100 crore, I borrowed 1,000 crore. That means what? I have leveraged 10 times of my equity. My borrowings are 10 times of my equity. That means whether healthy or not, whether the particular industry will be able to sustain, and also whether we'll be able to generate that much revenue to meet out the interest obligations. Are you clear? So that this is another ratio which indicates the health of the company. Debt to asset equity ratio. And the financial leverage ratio will already I explained to you. There are some more ratios which we will do that. What is that? The fixed assets turnover ratio, and you know that working capital turnover ratio, total assets turnover ratio, inventory turnover ratio, and inventory number of days ratios, and receivable turnover ratio, and day sales outstanding. So all these things, you know, that will give activities, how operating the companies efficiently. So we will, these are all, as I told you from the beginning, that when you do a fundamental analysis, you have to look at a lot of numbers. Just not look at the numbers needs to be interpreted in such a way, it gives an indication. It gives sufficient idea whether the company is really doing well or not. Get me? Why should I know that? Then only I can decide my investment, whether I can invest in the company or not. Otherwise, if I do blindly without looking at all this number, then probably you will get into a bad investment. So as an investment advisor, as a portfolio manager, or as an investor, whatever may be the role you want to play in this market, you need to understand these are all the ratios. Okay. The next is that is a valuation. How to value the company? Because how the stock market price related to the sales, how the market price related to its book value. What do you mean by book value? Book value, I have explained to you earlier that your capital plus reserves divided by the number of shares you get, what is the book value? And the price to the earning, that is called a P ratios. So book value is equivalent to share capital plus reserves divided by number of shares. Okay, current stock price by the EPS, that is called earning per share. Okay. So the next is that, you know, discounted cash flow analysis is the another important point. That is called net present value in the previous. And you know that we need to understand how DCF valuation model. Okay. There is a free cash flow model. There is a discounted cash flow model. So that we need to analyze how free cash flow in the company. What is that? The free cash flow is basically the excess operating cash that company generates after accounting of capital expenditure, such as buying land, building equipment. So that is the cash that shareholder enjoy after accounting for the capital expenditure. You understand, friends? So always we used to say in the business that cash is the king. How the company generate free cash flow? Otherwise, sometimes the company may have a lot of profit. The company would have generated profit, but there is no cash in the company. There is no bank balance in the company. They are unable to pay to the suppliers. The reason is that there may be a lack of funds in various places. So that we need to study that whether how company efficiently have the cash flow management. How to do that? There are 3 ways to do the analysis. We estimate the average free cash flow, identify the growth rate year on year, and we need to estimate the future cash flows. Then the next one is that we have to do the terminal value. That is what, predict the future free cash flow up to 10 years. That is another method. The net present value is that the future cash flow for the next 10 years and the terminal value. So from that, we will add up the present value to estimate the present value of the things. Okay. So the share price ultimately, that with regard to DCF analysis, we will arrive at that. Of course, there in the subject that fundamental analysis, studying the balance sheet and profit loss account is a very, very big subject. I have just highlighted very basic of this. We need to go much more into the depth of this analysis to understand better. Okay. Now I just summarize before I go to the next topic that now as a part of that the valuation techniques, we have studied about the technical analysis and charting, indicating and trend, reversal, moving average, oscillators, so on with the market indicators, so many things on the technical charting. And to study the qualitative and quantitative analysis of the company. So we have studied the fundamental analysis. Hope that if someone is interested to get into the topic better knowledge, please you can always mail me so that I can give you a practical balance sheet, annual report. So from that you can do some homework to understand you better. Okay. With this, I will conclude this subject. Suppose if you have any point to discuss questions, and I am ready to answer. I'll clarify that things, and I'll give you another 5 minutes time. And suppose if there is no question, that we will have a 5 minutes break. Then we will move on to the next topic. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm just waiting for you. Okay, and probably you can chat. I think you have my mail ID, you have my phone number, everything, all of you. Please, you can always send me any of your doubt into this topic, so that we will have a 5 minutes break. Then we will go for next one called that efficient market theory. Okay, thank you. Friends, are you back? Okay, sequence to the overall our topic in the unit 4. It's a technical analysis and fundamental analysis. We now try to understand the market. While we study the technical and fundamental analysis, we should know that how market is efficient. This efficient market theory have a hypothesis. What is that? What is an efficient market theory? Hypothesis proposes that, see, the financial market incorporate and reflect all known and relevant informations. This is very crisp of the topic. This is what you have to basically understand. So market is, whether market is an efficient market or inefficient market, first we need to understand the market. If there is an efficient market, that means what? We should incorporate and reflect all known relevant informations. This two line requires a large amount of explanation. What do you mean by that? Just please, friends, read it. I give you 2 minutes time. Please read the slides. Efficient market theory hypothesis proposes. This is hypothesis. I'm sure that what you all know about hypothesis means that is an assumption which I proceed. The validity of the efficient market hypothesis is debated. However, whether or not efficient market hypothesis are valid, it is useful as theoretical concept with which to study the financial market phenomena. Just read it. I'll explain to you in the simplest ways to make you understand. See, what is this market? The stock market, the price fluctuates. The prices are fluctuating, sometimes minute by minute, sometimes second by second, sometimes hours to hours. So it go on, sometimes fluctuates and highly volatile. The price quoted in the stock market or the price, right? Based on that, only one can decide to invest. How the prices are invented? The company is performing on the one side. The stock price of that particular company is traded on the stock market. How the prices are decided, how the prices are formed, how the prices are invented, how the prices are fluctuating, how the prices are volatile during the market time. That is the theory says that this efficient market theory, the hypothesis that the market, specifically financial market, it incorporates and reflects all known relevant informations. What do you mean by that? When the prices are reflected in the market, that means whatever the information related to the company, the performance, like in the details of the promoters, how the promoters are doing, whether they are healthy or they are active, and whether the companies are doing very well. That is a fundamental technical, plus the information about the market product. For example, now there is a heavy rain in Chennai. Okay. There are a lot of companies are in Chennai and which are flooded by water. That means that the production would have halted. The factory would have been closed. The employees may not reach the point in time. Then it requires a large amount of overhauling, cleaning, and bring back to the production. There are a lot of things, that informations which are relevant to the performance of the company. Whether these informations are incorporated while pricing this particular share of the company and reflecting in the market. You get my point, folks. So this is the hypothesis of the market. So this, what is the efficient market theory says? The efficient market theory says that the assumption that the market would have absorbed all the informations which are relevant to the particular corporate and duly whether reflected in the price formations or not. Right? For example, the results have been announced. The third quarter result, the second quarter result of September end was announced. The company have earned very good amount of profit. Whether these information have been reflected on the market, we have to look. If it is reflected or not, then based on that, we have to look at the market whether to decide on investment or not. You understand? For example, Ashok Leyland, it is located in China. And recently, long back, we heard a news that the managing director of Ashok Leyland was left. Or some company like Amazon, so many things. We are getting news that in some banks, we get news that the ED have resigned, CFO was resigned. That means how relevant to that corporate, whether that would affect the price of the company. That is the reason incorporate, the market should incorporate those news and reflect in the price. Or you get my point? So this is the efficient. If the market is efficient means, the hypothesis is that market should have absorbed all the informations and reflected in the market. If not, then the efficient market varies purely based on its assumptions. Okay. It assumes that all relevant information is reflected in the stock market. Then priced correctly. Suppose if not, then there may reaction in the market. It implies that stocks are never undervalued or overvalued. It also implies that investor can never consistently outperform the overall market or beat the market by employing investment strategy. So the hypothesis states that at any point of time, the share price is the market, the stock market, have been absorbed all the news relevant to the company and reflected in the price movement. Am I clear, or is it a little bit confusing? I will explain again. The hypothesis is that, or otherwise, the assumptions is that. The hypothesis is based on the entire assumptions that the share price of any company in a capital market is always priced correctly because it always absorbed or reacted or what you say that discounted the news and information relevant to the particular corporate, so that at any point of time the price of the particular company shares are rightly priced. That is what the assumption of this particular efficient market theory. So the efficient market hypothesis is that the share price reflect all information. That theory, I explain the definition. Okay. Or at the end point of time, the share price already discounted factor. For example, in a newspaper, you may read in the newspaper that the company is going to provide a 1:5 bonus, or they may split the share into 1:2 or 1:5 face value from 10:5 or 10:2 or 10:1 like that. These informations, when you read the books or the newspaper, and based on that, if you go on market, try to buy the share, that means that time, at the point of time, these informations already absorbed and reflect in the price. So you get my point. So that the price, you cannot say that, because sometimes you find that news as if that is going to happen in the future, but that news have been already discounted. Accordingly, the price would have changed in the market. So through this efficient market hypothesis, the theory is that market is generally efficient. Sometimes, there are three versions in the market. One is the weak market, semi-strong, and strong. What is that? It is generally believed that the securities market were extremely efficient in reflecting information about the individual stock, about the stock market as a whole. That is what everyone should understand. We may think that you only know the news, but the news already have been not only national, even with the international. When the pandemic broke out, you know that even many of them in India may not know that there is going to be a pandemic which is going to severely affect the economy, but the market have already sensed that and started falling. So market is always sensitive and reflecting on informations, not only domestic, political, economical, national, international, everything. So the news spreads very quickly. And accordingly, that because today we are all living in a technology world, the technology makes you to get the news so soon, so fast, so quick. So the price always get reflected. So when you do the technical analysis, which is based on the past stock prices, in attempt to predict, not even fundamental, the undervalued stock to enable an investor to achieve return higher than those could be obtained by holding a randomly selected portfolio of individual stock with a comparable risk. Okay. So the efficient market hypothesis is always associated with the idea of a random walk, which is a term loosely used in a financial literature to characterize, price series where all subsequent price changes represent a random departure from the previous prices. On the technical issues, we will understand all these things. When you do the random walk idea, so that it is always, the price changes representing a random departure from the previous prices. You get my point, folks? So that is the reason, and again, I'm telling that if you read this entire subject just for an academic, as a part of the syllabus, you have to go through your exam and get your MBA degree, then it's something different. But if you really interested, you should absorb this. These are all excellent opportunity for you to read this, understand this. Even you can make your profession in this field. So the logic of random walks idea is that if the flow of information is unimpeded and the information is immediately reflected in the stock prices, then tomorrow price change will reflect only on tomorrow's news and will be independent of the price changes today. That means that the today news already got discounted. That means don't wait for today's news, the market will react tomorrow. No. Tomorrow, if that is going to react, that means it may be for the tomorrow's news. So every news instantly got absorbed in the market. So market have the reflect on the prices. So the definition is unpredictable is that resulting price changes must be unpredictable and random. As a result, prices are fully reflect all known informations and even uninformed investors. Uninformed, there are two kinds of an investor. One is the informed investor and another is uninformed investor. What do you mean by that? Informed investor, already information he gathered. There are uninformed, information. So still buying a diversified portfolio at the table price of the given by the market will obtain the rate of return as generous as that achieved by the experts. So ultimately what we are trying to give you as a student of finance, friends, you need to understand how you can deploy your money, diversify your portfolio by understanding all these things in the market. Okay. So there are 3 degrees of efficient market. One is that weak form of efficiency, and semi-strong form efficiency, and strong. What do you mean by that? According to weak form market efficiency, that means reflect all historic price data in a stock's current market price. This implies that you cannot use a technical analysis to outperform the overall market. That means it is a big form of market efficiency. So whatever may be the historical price data in current price data, you cannot outperform the market because market already performing. You cannot do outperform in a weak market. So this form of efficiency does allow for security mispricing that investor can discover and exploit through the fundamental analysis. This is how the technical analysis and fundamentals are correlated. நீங்க வந்து technical பண்ணும் பொழுது you cannot outperform, but you can use that. Yes, the share price is mispricing or underpricing. So I can always look at this company with the fundamental reasons. Now I can always invest. If not today, I will get good return at a future. Okay. Now semi-strong market. What is that? Reflect all public data, including all historical data and all current financial statement data in the stock current market price. Already is reflected. Inga in the case, inga vande it's not reflected. புரியுதுங்களா? Inga vande it is reflected. So current. So this implies that neither technical analysis nor fundamental can be utilized to outperform the overall market because already the market have been discounted. நமக்கு ஒண்ணு பெரிய opportunities இருக்காது. So however this market of form of market efficiency does allow for security mispricing due to private information, not a public information. So investor with access to private information may be able to earn excessive return than others. So semi-strong நீங்க என்ன fundamental analysis or technical பண்ணாலும் it's very difficult to outperform the market because already have been incorporated, the price already have been reflected. However, if you have some private information, you can make more money in the semi-strong market. Very strong market, you know that they reflect all historical and public, private in the stock current market prices. So in this form of market efficiency implies that there is no way to achieve excessive return in a financial market. So you have a 3 form of market. One is the weak market and semi-strong market and the strong market. In a weak market, you can always identify the stock. You get my point? Identify the stock, and always you know that you can identify through a technical analysis and do the fundamental analysis. Then identify the stock and try to invest. You know that. Then you can always incorporate those information, try to make better money. And then in the semi market, with the public information, it's very difficult to break through and make an extra market. That means outperform. What do you mean by outperforming? See, market is performing 10. If I do 12, then I am outperforming the market. Market generally everybody earns 10 rupees. I am earning 12 rupees. That means that I am outperforming the market. But market is earning 10%. Generally, everybody earning 10 rupees, but I am making 8 rupees. That means that I'm not outperforming. I'm underperforming. So in a strong market, very difficult to outperform the market or make an excessive return. Whatever this is only a hypothesis. So every hypothesis have got its own criticism, its own, you know, what do you mean by that? And advantages and disadvantages, and every theory have got its own, you know, that you can argue in favor, argue against. Okay, friends. So friends, I'll try to conclude that in the entire valuation analysis, as I am going to be an investor or a portfolio manager or a fund manager, how effectively I can do the valuation technology to identify the timings and through a technical analysis, to identify the stock on a fundamental analysis, and also understand the market, that how the market is inefficient, whether there is a weak market or a semi-strong market or a strong market, so that I can decide of my timing of investment of these things. And this is how the whole things are working. And with this friend, I try to conclude that is actually again, all these things I need to have more of time to explain you with the practical examples, with the market data, so that you will able to understand better and involve yourself in doing this kind of work. With this, I will conclude this. Thank you so much. And I'll try to give you some assignments. Based on that, you can do some working. With this, I will conclude today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.